he is, God, he has got so much damn potential.
He definitely does.
He's got so much potential.
But he comes back from every fight that he's had better, you know? I mean, when one of the most impressive ones was he knocked out Klitschko. Oh my God.
Klitschko's seen better days, though.
Change, another inconsistency in Anthony Joshua. I now understand, I believe having watched this, where Jake Paul is getting his confidence from. How he's built this narrative in his head that he genuinely has a chance. I think the thing to remember here, though, is that Anthony Joshua doesn't struggle against all smaller fighters.
This might be his last fight, getting in there with Anthony Joshua and getting...
Gentlemen, strap in, because Joe Rogan and Mike Tyson just took the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua conversation, tossed it into a blender of truth, fear, comedy, and chaos, and poured out the most brutally honest breakdown you've heard all year. That's the energy this whole spectacle deserves, because the second Rogan opened his mouth,
it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. Maybe we should watch the Francis Ngannou fight.
you could almost hear boxing purists exhale like, finally, someone said it. He starts by reminding the world that Anthony Joshua is not some YouTuber's weekend hobby. He's a heavyweight destroyer built like the final boss of a video game. A man whose punch sounds like someone slamming a car door shut with 500 pounds of anger behind it. Rogan practically paints him as a Marvel villain. When this dude is focused, locked in, dialed up, he's terrifying, and he's not lying.
So you could see, let's watch that real quick, just so you can see what Anthony Joshua is capable if he's fighting someone that's not in his league. Okay, look, Usyk beat him, and he beat him twice, and Andy Ruiz caught him in the first fight and dropped him and stopped him. It was spectacular. Andy Ruiz is super fucking talented. Usyk is...
Anyone who's seen Joshua detonate a fight knows exactly what he meant. Joshua's power doesn't tap you on the shoulder. It deletes your consciousness like clearing browser history. But then comes Jake Paul, the kid who turned chaos into a career. And Rogan wastes no time slicing into that confidence Jake's been flexing online. He basically laughs at the idea that Paul has a real shot. Because in the universe where this fight takes place, the laws of physics don't change just to protect influencers. Rogan makes one savage point. Joshua's weaknesses show up against smaller, elite, professional boxers, not social media entertainers with ambition and a protein shake. And the implication is clear. If Joshua struggled with world-class men who were still smaller than him,
I think that this has been a misstep from Jake. I think he wanted to make his partners at Netflix a little too happy, and he's gonna walk into it. But like, look it, he loses to AJ. Where does he go from here? Who does he fight? You gonna go back down to 135?
The problem is not that he loses to AJ. The problem is the way he's gonna lose to AJ might be life changing.
Right.
So that's the real issue.
It could be life changing in many ways, right? Physically.
Yeah.
See what he did in Ngannou. It's like, but then again, like, if he gets knocked out, he gets knocked out.
What's Jake gonna look like? A warm-up stretch? Then Mike Tyson steps in. When a man who once lived his life punching bones out of people's faces speaks, you listen. Tyson doesn't sugarcoat a single thing. He basically says Jake Paul's last fight, the one with Tyson himself, was more like friendly sparring with a senior citizen who still has the heart of a lion but the body of a 58-year-old. Which is Tyson code for, that wasn't the real test, kid. Tyson knows exactly what Joshua represents. He's seen that kind of power. He used to be that kind of power.
I wouldn't consider him like a YouTube fighter no more. I feel like he put in the time. He gotten better throughout like all his fights. Like he done got better throughout all those fights, But it's still like when you fighting like fighters who actually like done it for like their whole life, it's a little different. If that fight happened, it'll be a good money fight. It'll be a good money fight. But that's a tough task for, Jake going to get that big ass heavyweight AJ. I know AJ personally, so that's tough.
So when he says Jake is walking into a lion's cage wearing barbecue sauce, trust that the man is being polite. And then the tone changes. Rogan, Tyson, even the analysts around them, they start talking risk. Not YouTube drama risk, not comment section risk, real physical risk. They break down the part casual fans forget. The danger isn't just one-punch knockout. A quick nap on the canvas might actually be the safest possible ending for Jake Paul. No, the real horror show is 10 heavy punches. 20, 30, over multiple rounds. Repeated trauma is where careers end. That's where brains get scrambled like hotel eggs.
Not take the fight against Jake Paul. Anthony Joshua takes the fight against Jake Paul. Anthony Joshua at the press conference gets asked his opinion of Francis not taking the fight against Jake Paul. And Joshua's like, he's an idiot. He's an idiot. There is no reason for him to not take this match. I cannot be and am not mad at Francis. I can't be. Like rules would preclude me from being upset with Francis. I'm not a big Francis fan. Francis fan. I'm not a Francis supporter.
When Rogan said one knockout shot is survivable, but eating heavy punches for several rounds? That's worse. You felt the chill. That's the kind of warning you don't ignore. And yet, the circus continues because money talks louder than fear. Here comes the business angle. Mike and Joe break down why this fight is happening. Simple. Spectacle, numbers, viral clips, streaming gold. Jake knows fighting Anthony Joshua is the biggest bag he'll ever touch. Joshua knows fighting Jake Paul is the easiest 8-figure payday he'll ever get for what might be his shortest night at work. Netflix knows this is the kind of event that makes the whole planet stop scrolling for a second. So, boom, the deal gets signed. But the cost? That's where Joe and Mike get brutally honest. For Jake Paul, this isn't just a fight. This is reputation roulette. If he gets outclassed so badly that the memes enter the Smithsonian, that's damage you cannot rebrand your way out of. Then the analysts come back swinging with cold, factual reality. Jake Paul's youth and social media clout don't mean a thing when the bell rings. None of that matters when you're standing across from a man who has Olympic medals, world titles, and heavyweight knockouts on his resume. Joshua has fought giants. Joshua is a giant. He's dealt with elite footwork, championship timing, unpredictable styles, chin check specialists, everything Jake has yet to face. So when the analysts say on paper this isn't close, they're not being shady, they're being accurate. But the craziest part
is only one outcome that can hurt Jake in this scenario, and that's that he gets viciously knocked out. Or he gets beat up really bad for 8 rounds and then viciously knocked out. I saw Nikisa talking on Ariel Helwani's show today about this, about like how it's not necessarily something they're worried about that Jake gets knocked out, because he's not afraid of the one-punch knockout as much as he's afraid of like Jake getting beat up for 8 rounds badly and it, causing some real cognitive damage. And there is science behind the fact that the more repeated head trauma is the more dangerous thing about pro boxing, because those gloves, you can get hit, you get 8 to 10 seconds to stand, and you can repeat it 2-3 times in the same fight, just absorbing punch after punch. So in the totality of Jake getting like knocked out cold, is that the worst thing possible for his health? I mean, who knows, dude? You could have a freaking brain aneurysm when you get hit off one shot from a guy like AJ. Again, knock on wood, you don't want to see any of that happen. If his career ends because AJ hurts him badly, then yes. But if it's a knockout where Jake is able to then continue fighting, people will still watch. It may not be as big as the AJ fight, but he still has an opportunity to make money in boxing. Again, the only way it wouldn't be the case is if Jake got like permanently injured from this fight, which is part of the reason that they take this fight, is because Jake doesn't really have anything to lose here outside of, again, the bodily harm. You fight a guy like Tommy Fury again, which I want to see, I think is more competitive, but doesn't bring the eyes that AJ does. So again, this is the entertainment business, and these Netflix fights are made for a massive audience. But you lose to Tommy Fury again, even by decision, that deflates Jake more than a knockout from Anthony Joshua. A loss to KSI deflates Jake more than a loss to Anthony Joshua. This is a perfect, even if Jake would have gotten just schooled by Gervonta Davis, it would have deflated him more than a knockout, I think. Yeah, it's a lot of risk, a lot of reward, but as far as your marketability, as long as...
Jake knows all this and he's still walking into that ring. Why? Because Jake Paul is, if nothing else, the planet's greatest gambler disguised as a boxer. He loves the danger. He loves the spectacle. He loves the narrative of, I'll prove everyone wrong. And Rogan acknowledges that he even respects it. But he doesn't pretend it changes the outcome. He says the quiet part out loud. This is the most dangerous fight of Jake Paul's career. Period. And Tyson nods because he doesn't have to say much. His silence is basically subtitles for, he's going to get hit with something he's never experienced. Then things get even more surreal. They start talking about what happens if by some cosmic glitch, Jake survives a few rounds. Tyson actually gives him credit for mental toughness, saying the kid doesn't fold.
And, Jake Paul being Jake Paul, he wanted to focus on the biggest, baddest names possible. That included Terrence Crawford. That included Ryan Garcia. That included Tommy Fury. That included Anthony Joshua. And we probably had, 30 or 40 names that we kind of reviewed. And I will say at least 12 or 13 names that agreed to do the fight. Some within the 2-week period, actually. But from a Netflix perspective, they were very keen on Joshua. They were interested on Crawford. They were interested in Ryan Garcia as potential opponents for Jake Paul. They were interested in Tommy Fury at some level as well. And the one that Jake gravitated towards was Anthony Joshua. Once it became clear Ryan couldn't do the fight as well. Ryan was also something that he was interested in doing. And the deal came together mostly because Jake mentioned this as of March of this year, right? That's the first time he was on a podcast and said, I think I can beat Anthony Joshua. Everyone laughed. At the time, Eddie Hearn said this is another, media attention-seeking moment for Jake Paul. I made it clear then to Eddie and to the media, Jake was serious and we wanted to do it in 2026. We had further conversations with Matchroom in July of this year with the understanding that if Jake got through Tank Davis, and even though that was an exhibition, it was very much structured to be a real fight in every way, shape, and form, then we would look to make Jake versus Joshua in 2026. So that gave us a head start in terms of trying to come to an agreement with Matchroom and AJ, and we were able to get it done.
I just want to ask about a couple of those names that you mentioned. Garcia's interesting because a day or so later, Oscar De La Hoya said he's a DAZN fighter, this ain't happening, and of course we know there's no bigger DAZN.
Rogan nods. They acknowledge Jake's work ethic, his guts, his commitment. But surviving and winning are two different universes. Joshua isn't just strong, he's accurate. He's technical. He's disciplined when he wants to be. So the question becomes, what happens when Jake gets hurt for the first time? And there's no timeout, no clinch escape, no referee protecting him like in influencer bouts? That's where the real terror exists. So there you have it. Joe Rogan and Mike Tyson didn't just break down Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. They exposed it. They stripped it down to reality. A spectacle wrapped in danger, wrapped in money, wrapped in delusion, wrapped in ambition. And at the center of all that, a YouTuber walking into the most dangerous night of his life, and a heavyweight destroyer sharpening his weapons for the easiest paycheck of his career.